family lives under a bridge, lost everything they owned. Now empty cardboard boxes are what they're calling home. This is where Jesus would go. There's a white-haired widowed lady laying in intensive care. No one goes to see her when she needs some love and prayer. This is where Jesus would go. This is where
I will make music to you,
Jesus
to the one who gives the victory to kings, who delivers his servant David from the deadly sword. Wow, you know, one of the things that I really love about Psalms is its capacity to convey to us the heart of a man who wrote these, or the men in this case, who wrote these Psalms, who loved the Lord with expression. Remember, love is an action and not just a word. David would write this, and he didn't just write about what was in his heart. He wrote about expressive action, expressive communication of love. What good is it if your child says, "I love you," but never gives you a hug, and never comes to sit on your lap, never writes you a drawing, never colors you a picture, never makes you a homemade card for your birthday or for Valentine's Day or for when you're feeling sad? These are all expressions of love. When a child comes to you and says, "Mommy, Daddy, I need to talk to you. I have this problem or that problem." When they say, "Can I talk to you about something?" When your child comes to you and says, "I'm hungry. Will you feed me?" These are all expressions of love. You see, love is more than an emotional feeling. It's an expressed sense of being. Let me put it this way. Does your child go up to a stranger and color them a picture? Just out of the blue, walks up and gives it. No, if your child did something like that, you would question what's going on. But your child comes up to you, will sit there and color a book and be in their own little world, and suddenly, out of the blue, you hear a page rip, and they come up to you and they say, "Mommy, Daddy, I made this for you." And you say, "Oh, how adorable," and you give them a hug, and they give you a hug. Sometimes they crawl up on your lap and say, "My belly hurts," or "I don't feel well." And they're coming to you for that place of comfort. Because they're coming for you, because they love you and they trust you and they feel safe with you. They're coming to you. And they're expressing their love for you by coming to you, by coloring you a picture, by looking to you to fill their need. Well, we were created in God's image, and that's what God does. God looks at us, waiting for us to tear a page out of our coloring book of life and bring it up to him and say, "Daddy, I've made this for you." He looks for us to come and crawl up on his lap and say, "My belly hurts," or "I'm hungry," or to sit down next to you on the couch and you look up to God and you say, "Father, can I speak to you? There's something that troubles me. There's something I've been meaning to ask, something I don't understand." These are expressions of love to a most holy God. But what about corporately? You know, David writes a lot about corporate worship. In fact, go back before David, long before the days of David, when the Israelites were coming out of Egypt, led by Moses, and they crossed the Red Sea, and they gave pause to witness what had happened. Josephus writes about the sea crashing in on the Egyptian army and the weapons of war being washed up on the shore, and that's how the Hebrews were armed with weapons. But they did something in the midst of this, a testimony, a monument to God that has now become a testimony throughout the generations. Miriam wrote a song, and the maidens gathered together, and publicly they sang a song and declared the greatness of God and his mighty hand to deliver his people out of a hard position, out of a difficult way. out of a life-threatening position. How wonderful it is to be expressive in our love to God. Now, some people think that that means they need to wave flags and play tambourines and jump up and down and scream and yell and run around and jump up and down on pews and do all kinds of things that sometimes people look at and say, you know, that's just goofy. Why don't they act like somebody? Why don't they act like an adult? But really, whether you're 8 or you're 80, before God you are a child. And if you are a lover of God, you are a child of God. So what do you mean, grow up and act like somebody? Some of my most intimate times before God happened in a corporate setting as I openly expressed my love for my God. Sometimes that entails waving a flag or a banner. Declaring His greatness, declaring the love of God, the greatness of God, the supremacy of God. Sometimes it comes by going and kneeling down on an altar. Sometimes it comes by writing a new song, declaring my heart for God. Perhaps declaring something He's done in my life. Sometimes it comes in the form of writing a letter. We were at a large event here recently, and it came in the form of a man painting a picture of Jesus, and it was an expression of worship, an expression of love. He was extolling the name of God on high. We are an expressive people. And instead of telling one another, grow up, act like an adult, act like somebody, mind yourself, let me just rebuke that for a moment. And let me say, quit growing up and become like a child before God. Express your love. Color a coloring book page for Him and tear it out of your book and say, Daddy, I made this for you. Don't be ashamed to express your love for God. Don't be afraid to express your love for God. What do you care what I think? What do you care what anybody else thinks? This is the God that has saved us from death. He lifted us up out of terrible places and He rescued us. When an army comes against us to destroy us, it is God who delivers us. When we are in need and we fall down before God and we say, oh God, I have a need. I need this. I am going to die without this. And God He brings that provision in our life. We are satisfied. Don't be afraid. If everybody in your church has nothing to do to express their love for God, don't join in with them. Express yourself before God. Because when we come together corporately, it is the children of God coming together before our Father in heaven to express our love for Him. When you're in that place of worship, you know, for some churches, it's sing 2.5 songs and sit down. For others, it may be nothing but a worship service all Sunday. For some churches, it's a love feast from the time they get together until the sun goes down. How beautiful is that? Blessed is the man or woman that belongs to a body of believers that have a love feast for God. But regardless of what corporate church setting you're in, do not be afraid to be expressive of your love for God. Now that doesn't mean that we stand up and we express ourselves in some kind of radical way so that we can draw attention on ourselves and say, hey, look at me, I'm loving on God. I'm loving on God, look at me. It's not about them looking at you. It feels like it. I'll tell you what I do. I close my eyes. So many times, if I feel like I'm the only one jumping up and down or waving at God or just being expressive in song to God or being expressive in dramatic, I wouldn't call it interpretive dance, I would call it a dramatic movement. I'm a little non-bendable to be calling it dramatic dance. But to express myself before God, to express my love, so many times, beloved, I'll close my eyes And I don't close my eyes because I'm in some romantic moment. I close my eyes so that I can't see the people who probably really aren't looking at me anyway. But I think they might be. And I don't want to become afraid. I would rather love my Jesus, because that is just the greatest thing I can do. Be expressive in your love for the Lord. Don't be afraid to be expressive. To be expressive in your love is to do nothing more than color a picture for your daddy. Is to do nothing more than to have them come home and say, Mommy, Daddy, look what I've done. I cleaned up the living room for you. I did the dishes for you. I know how much you hate to take out the trash. I took out the trash for you. Beloved, be expressive in your love for God today. God bless you.
This is where Jesus would go. This is where Jesus would go. I want to go where you would go. I want to do what you would do. Anywhere you lead is all right with me. 'Cause Lord, I want to follow you. There's a broken-hearted father suffered his greatest loss as he watched his only son die on an old rugged cross. This is where Jesus would go. This is where Jesus would go.